Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Resident Evil Season 1 on Netflix. And this is the live action show, and this is weird. It is not the worst Resident Evil thing that I have seen. I know that's weird. I don't think it's a good adaptation of Resident Evil. However, it was not like it was intentionally made bad almost, while still thinking it was simultaneously good like the movie. Like, the movie was a whole other level, the newest movie. It was like such a whole other level of bad for me that I'm like, okay, this isn't that bad. But it's still not good in my opinion. There's at least potential for what was going on. Like, if they hadn't tried to make this a Resident Evil thing and instead did their own kind of hey, bioweapons kind of shit, it probably could have worked better. It also doesn't help that one of the people that was involved within Supernatural from to the end of the series was part of this, so it's okay, but that does explain why it focused more on sisters and why I think that the sister dynamic is the kind of strongest thing here. Now, that doesn't mean that it's always executed very well, alright? I will explain that. So, for some fucked up reason, this thing decides to go with two time things going on at once, 2022 and 2036. Why? I don't have a fucking clue. I would have liked you to start at the beginning, which would have been the 2022 one, and actually go through with it. And then eventually we would get to, shit getting nutty. Or doing everything when it's nutty, and kind of then giving us certain flashbacks for things that were important, because otherwise we don't really have much stuff. We do have homages to what goes on in Resident Evil, and they kind of work at least a little bit better in this, but still not to a good degree. It's we saw the other movies, and it's alright, we could do a little bit better, but it's what? So, this is, for some fucked up reason, still within the same universe as, the video games. Albert Wesker does die in a volcano. They even reference that. Ada Wong is name-dropped as well, because she's pretty much name-dropped towards the end of the season. So, in 2022... Umbrella has been able to get back into its Umbrella graces and is headed by Evelyn Marcus, who's part of one of the daughter of one of the founders. Yeah, we're gonna do this shit. And their whole thing is this whole joy drug, which for some reason they decided to put the T-virus in. Yeah, that's not gonna go bad at all, is it? Tijuana, Mexico facility, fucked up shit, yeah. Which is really kind of weird, because you're talking about another Raccoon City incident, and you've pretty much got it there, and you could have just done it there, but then they kind of draw up this whole thing. It's oh, we got these two young girls with this dude named Albert Wesker. What's going on there, you might add? And it's oh, he keeps drawing blood every 2 weeks. I wonder why he does that. Maybe he's a vampire. Which isn't far from the truth. So, they're pretty much in this umbrella company town in South Africa, and they go to school stuff, and I'm God damn it, why the... I understand trying to appeal to a younger demographic, but every time this kind of happens, it's always the same shit. It is very rare for me to see any kind of film that accurately depicts what fucking goes on in a school. Only one that I could really get at and be okay, cool. Even though I was not even alive during the school period, was Dazed and Confused. Where it's the last day of school and everybody's just fucking doing whatever the fuck they want and shit. And you've got people in middle school going into high school, and high school being summer, motherfucker, summer, shit. You know what I mean? Everything other than that, it's people who are sometimes vastly older being hello, fellow kids, this is what's going on. Random person fighting other random person for reasons. It's normally when you get into a kind of fighting scenario, it's either because of some kind of build-up. Am I just now explaining that, real-life schools have better plot pacing than what's going on? Granted, you sometimes get the rare prison, I'ma be the biggest bitch in the yard, motherfucker! But it's kind of a rarer kind of instance. You know what I mean? Like to set off kind of prison terminology with that kind of shit. But you see, Billy was evidently the psycho one in one place, and she doesn't want to be the psycho one now. Jade is perpetually pissed off and talked about Zootopia porn, and that was just totally like fellow kids kind of shit. It's like, you always have to be careful with your references. Mainly because whenever you're trying to make a reference with that shit, it's almost always going to be a nostalgia thing. Because there's always this lag time of like, okay, if you attempt to try and do stuff now, like say, I came up with a meme that says gorp fuck. That's going to be done in about 2 weeks maybe with its height. If you try and do that within the next year, you're going to be thought of as like a fucking fuddy-duddy, old-ass shitbird who doesn't know what the fuck's going on because that means old as motherfucking shit. You wait about 10 years for the people that thought it was funny back then and be like, oh yeah, I remember that shit. 5 years maybe. You can kind of slash that. You know what I mean? Whenever you make those kind of references, you're making it for people in the future who are kids now. It's always kind of weird when you try and do that and be like, yeah, because even though there's like certain cultural touchstones for kids and all that, trying to hit it when it's hot, you're never going to get it when it's hot. You know, you're almost always going to be hitting that kind of like, it's stone cold, and then you're better off going for nostalgia bait, motherfucker. It's just like, alright, and like, granted, young kids are pretty much still the same. They got their own kind of stuff. They're trying to figure themselves out. Write them like people, not pretty much like, hey, she's pissed off because her dad dragged her out here. It's like, yes, we have seen that. Can you kind of give her more kind of her own kind of unique identity? That happens more with Billy, and then it kind of flips more as though we kind of get more of her stuff in 2036, which I'm like, give me more of that, please. So they're dealing with this. It's like, why the fuck is this Albert Wesker? What's going on here? And I like the actor that they get for him, but it's really kind of weird. I know I kind of went like on a tangent there, but it kind of sets up for like why you're probably like, okay, there's a lot of different kind of like people that have gotten into Resident Evil at certain kind of spaces. We got the original ones dealing with the Raccoon City incident. We got what happened when they kind of shifted in Resident Evil 4, and then also the kind of shifting that happened in 7 and 8. However, I think most of them can be like weird fucked up bioweapons and just weird cheesy shit that kind of goes on. Like if you get that right kind of balance, you can get for a lot of people. And that's kind of like the marketing here. They're trying to go for like the younger audience, and I'm like, I think that this has a strong enough pull on what's going on that you don't have to try that hard with it. Like, if you execute it well, anybody's gonna go for it. Young, old, dead, undead, bioweapon, motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? And then it gets into the weirdness of how it kind of shifts the kind of mutations as well. It's like, alright, because this is going on, let's explain this. Because we get into 2036 and we see that Jade's like trying to fix everything that like her father set in motion, and she's trying to see what's going on with the zombies. However, they are not zombies. They are not undead. Even though they lose sight and sound, smells are pretty much their main thing. It's weird. It's like the virus rewires their brain to feed and spread as carriers. And I'm like, what? Granted, I've read some, like, I usually read into the notes and everything that goes on with, like, the games and all that. Why the fuck did I forget that? But just, like, grabbing for it. So, I'm just like, alright, but it usually reanimates them and, like, does freaky-ass shit. And I'm like, I get that, but that's a weird kind of change. So, I wasn't really a fan of that. However, in the 2036, we start seeing, like, giant caterpillars. We actually see mutated spiders, which I appreciated. I wish it was done in an executed better show, but that's what we got. So, she's pretty much trying to see if the carriers have, like, evolved to a certain point. I'm like, I understand you're trying to, like, fix certain shit. How does this help? Like, it's really weird. They half-ass it enough on both of the things that, like, there's enough potential for each kind of scenario place to go down, but not enough to really be like, oh, alright. She's trying to see any kind of level of intelligence. I'm like, is it because you're trying to look for a cure? Or what's going on? I don't know, man. And then we learned that Billy is pretty much with the Umbrella Ones doing her own shit. And it's just, it's really kind of weird because a lot of nothing happens. We see the kids at the school dealing with kids of the cool school stuff. Jade pretty much is utilizing the Simon dude, who is actually the son of Evelyn Marcus, and he's able to like hack into stuff. They get information on the Tijuana thing. Billy is in like doesn't like animal testing, so they go in to kind of like get information on that, and she accidentally fucking like this girl did not seem this dumb, but she, because of the plot, Billy like takes this card that they got from Albert and opens it to take a picture, and it's the zombie dog. It's like, I don't know, man, that looks like a zombie dog to me because it's got like shit and it bites her, and Wesker's got to kind of deal with this stuff. Ellen wants Joy pretty much poked out. It's like, yeah, look at what it does to this fucking rat. It's like, oh shit. And it's like, we're gonna go through it anyway. It's like, fucking shit. Like, it doesn't even know what it really wants to hit Umbrella on. It's like, oh yeah, she wants to utilize this Joy to pretty much mind control people. I'm like, I get it. You want to help people with like anxiety, depression, all that kind of stuff. That's good. It's like, yeah, we can do cues and everything like that, mind control. And Albert's like, that sounds fucked up, man. And it's really weird because you're like, this doesn't really sound like the Albert kind of Wesker that we've seen. Aha, you may say. But we've got an explanation for that because at the end of the series we learned that there's like 3 Albert Wesker clones. The one that we've seen, an Albie, and a Bert one, and Bert's been locked up underneath, and that Albert Wesker, the original one, we do see him looking like kind of like Mr. X for some reason with how his like outfit is. He does have superpowers and everything, goes out, and then we just see him like disappear before it's like, yeah, he died in Volcano. Because the Bert one was explaining that to the daughters as everything starts going through. Billy is pretty much being like, she's not turning into a complete zombie, but she's going kind of freaky ass. Let's see. I know this is really kind of weird, but it jumps all over the place and is not very well edited. Let's see. That, she's dealing with that. She is actually not the source of the outbreak. There's this reporter dude from Tijuana's coming in and be like, I need to interview these people and all this kind of shit. And then he gets captured by Umbrella, and Albert's like, I gotta protect my girls. Does anybody know about him? Nope. Then he injects him with like this giant dose of joy that eventually turns him into pretty much a tyrant for the end of the episode. End of the season, not end of the episode, end of the season, and pretty much unleashes the South Africa, I guess, Raccoon City incident thing. Because they're trying to get Albert clone out, and everything's kind of going to shit. She's not completely nutty, but she bites the Simon dude, and then Evelyn pretty much kills him. It's like, she's not... She's kind of going nuts, but we don't even know how it would affect him. I mean, you had enough time to pretty much, like, do some stuff. You could have just, like, chopped his arm off or whatnot. And that goes that. They kind of go out, and the father, like, blows himself up. Albert West. The one that we've been around, Bert takes them off, and Albert's like, yeah, fuck you, and then blows himself up to kind of, like, get Evelyn off their trail. And then they are looking into Ada Wong, and that's where the 2022 stuff kind of ends. 2023, she's trying to find stuff. She gets captured by these people, and they're going to sell her to Umbrella, and Umbrella's looking for this Baxter dude, just this fucking stupid kind of dude that's like, oh yeah, Umbrella and shit, man. Let me look here. He keeps chasing her for a while. They get into a tunnel kind of thing because she needs to get to Calais to get back to her daughter and husband. And she gets through this tunnel. We get some liquor action. It's like, all right, cool. The Baxter dude somehow lives through that. Whatever. There, she also fights the spider thing. We did see a typewriter. William Birkin's name was name dropped. They did do a kind of puzzle thing as the girls were kind of working that out in 2022, which was kind of nice. Moonlight Sonata and all that. Lisa was shown as well. And then they're freaking out over learning all the kind of stuff, seeing Lisa and all that. And they're like, oh, they wouldn't have nuked Raccoon City or whatnot. Or, yeah, they did. And then they got video evidence of Lisa, and Billy's like, no, this isn't real. It's like, you got video fucking evidence. Alright. It's mainly because you've only got 8 episodes to kind of sell this shit, and you don't have enough time for that. So she's kind of like putzing around, going through that kind of stuff, tries to help this one family, but the kid's pretty much turning. Father sacrifices himself to try and take out the spider. She crushes it with a door. Woman decides to stay with her son, and then she gets captured by this Brotherhood freaky thing that like worships the zombies, but then is like, fuck that shit. Like at the sign of trouble. The Baxter dude is shot. He does the fucking I'm the master of unlocking thing. I'm like, god damn it, why? I understand the reference, but nobody seems to like. It's all in how you execute it and how cheesy it is, and why Barry Burton and all that stuff and Jill, like. Just because you say something as a reference to see fellow fans, that doesn't mean it fucking works. This did, and I'm like, alright, whatever. And they see that there's an evolved, like, fucking Zero zombie thing. It's like, and it's like, alright, cool. And so she, like, runs around, has to deal with them as they've escaped, and then chops its head off and pretty much takes it with her. She gets back onto what's called the University, which is, like, an opposite kind of antagonistic force to Umbrella, which is like collecting things from the old world, like art and all that stuff, and she's trying to pretty much research a way to undo what's been done and make a better world for her daughter. And she does this stupidly because the plot demands that the stupid stuff happens. So she goes through, she's able to do all this kind of stuff, gets away from her daughter's kind of thing, and they find a way to utilize the gland to have things that attract T-virus things and repel T-virus things. So it's like, alright, that'll come in handy. And the thing is, she tests it, she goes out, she gets a fucking zombie from underneath the water and uses it, but her daughter fucks it up because she sprays herself and the zombie can't see her or do anything to her because it doesn't smell her, but it smells the daughter's like, escapes and kills her colleague who was pregnant, and everybody's pissed off. And then Umbrella finds them, and the thing is, Billy had, like, put a tracker in her, but, like, Billy took that out, and she's like, oh, yeah, I've got, I'm getting worse, too, because of what's going on. And she just plays a very kind of, she plays more of what we've known kind of as Wesker, but, like, we don't have enough time to sit with her for it to actually work out. I think the, like, 2036 parts are kind of, like, the weakest kind of elements. Kind of, she pretty much tracked the ship because she put a tracker in the zombie head. And she's like, yeah, just come back with us. We see that she's controlling Evelyn. We'd seen her pretty much talking with the one dude, but she's able to do this thing. It's like, alright, whatever. And she's like, nope, you're coming with me, pretty much because of, like, her blood. Because they're kind of like blood bags because of they were utilized to make the clone Wesker more stable because they were like grown in like 6 months to like peak capacity, which doesn't really make sense that Albert Wesker would do that kind of thing because of his kind of godplex and superiority and all that kind of stuff. I understand Evelyn's trying to like do it with immortality and also so that way he'd have his people to research things because he thinks he's the smartest kind of person. I can kind of buy it, but the execution of it isn't well enough for me to be like that Albert Wesker from the games would do that. He's so high on his own supply and would do his own kind of stuff and would usually has more of a kind of god complex than that. So Jade decides to be like, fuck your shit, Billy, cracks open the thing that would attract the T-virus people, They come rushing in. We get pretty much killing all this kind of stuff. She gets back on the boat, but she told B to kind of escape just in case. So it's like, hey, plot demands that the daughter gets put in a compromised position. And the thing is, I would say this girl is dumb, but that would preclude that she was an actual character and is not plot demanded to be there. So Umbrella's kind of getting a little bit fucked up. Billy's like, alright, I'm going to do this shit with these drones. And then they're like, unleash the Kraken! Which is actually like a giant croco fucker thing. And I'm like, alright, somehow you can control it, because they even... Well, they don't even really control it. They're like, let's do this kind of thing, and we can kind of like make sure that it works or not. And then it goes and attacks the forces. And Billy's like, ah, shit. And I'm like, okay, I appreciate it, but you're doing it stupidly, so... This facilitates between being like, okay, I appreciate what you've attempted to do, even though you don't do it very well. However, they do it to the fucked up levels of what had occurred in, like, the latest movie, or, like, in the other movies that happened. Let's see. So, Billy's able to get in a helicopter, but the crocofucker is getting towards the daughter, and then decides to be like, hey, I'm not going to eat you. And then they shoot a rocket at it and kill it. And then Billy's like, I'm going to take you. And Jade's like, no, you're not taking my daughter. She's like, I don't need you anymore. And then shoots her in the gut, takes the kid, and leaves. Pretty much, they're like shouting at each other. It's like, yeah, you're like that. You're like, and they're like fucking locking horns for shit. It's like, you left me. La, la, la. I'm like, you didn't leave each other. You kind of went. I was just like, alright, cool. It's the typical kind of supernatural sibling shit that you would see in the supernatural show after a certain point. Like, God. And her husband, dude, is got his leg fucked up because they were both going after the kid, and he's just lying on the beach, and she's like left bleeding out of his stomach, gut shot. And that's where it ends. Kid taken. I'm like, I don't need a second season of this. I'm like, definitely not interested in this. And that's the thing. I'm not going like full jacket, thumbs down on it, because there was at least potential and at least a modicum of like care for it, that it's more kind of neutral on me. Like, they didn't go overly antagonistic and trying to say, fuck all this shit you know, and fuck what's kind of going on, and doing kind of shit in such a way that it like destroys characters or whatnot. Granted, I would say that there is kind of some character destroying kind of going on with Albert Wesker, but they're trying to do it more for plot convenience, more than like, say, in the last movie where they essentially destroyed Leon Kennedy's character and made him dumb as fucking shit. And destroyed Wesker's character to make him do a walkthrough of what's going on a Palm Pilot. I can at least say that the Albert Wesker here at least actually thinks about what's going on and does stuff. And then also Bert gets pissed off and has an Olive Garden kind of thing, like, I want my breadsticks. I'm like, yeah, he has been locked up. Kind of freaky. I do hand it to the actor, because he plays very distinct versions of Albert throughout most of what's going on. It's like, goddamn. So, would I recommend this to Resident Evil fans? No. I'm not saying I would not recommend it, but if you're asking me if you need and want to watch something Resident Evil out of everything that's gone on, I would go with this one. It's weird, because I'm almost positive, like, there can be a certain way to adapt the Resident Evil series properly, but I just keep seeing them doing it the wrong way. Like, I facilitate back and forth between, this can never be adapted. I mean, granted, it's messy as shit in the games as well, but I think if you did it right, it could be a really good thing. It's just everybody's going about it in the weirdest, strangest way possible, and not being able to truly succeed on this. Like, the action's okay. It's very more effects heavy, and that kind of limits what they do action-wise, and sucks up a lot of the budget for other stuff. The set's not really that gripping, and you're like, you don't really see anything. from any of the games that would be like recognizable landmarks. Not that you have to have that, mind you, but you don't really get anything like that. You don't really see a lot of zombies either. You see more CGI ones, which I understand, pandemic. You can't get a lot of people. Get that, alright? No problems there. It's just like, alright, cool. That's the thing. I wouldn't recommend this to people, but it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. And even the worst thing I've ever seen in regards to Resident Evil. I do not think it's good. I would rather take my time doing something else, or look at something else, watch something else, read something else. Yeah. Resident Evil, like, I've been talking about this with Reverb Jill Sandwiches. Spoiler, he likes Resident Evil. And a CGI series would probably be the best way to go. As we've been, like, talking about it. Because then you can do the weirder, kind of wackier kind of stuff. Do more of the body kind of horror of what's going on without going complete and utterly nutty effects-wise of trying to, like, have a person look at, like, a tennis ball as it's going effects-wise. You know what I mean? That would probably be the best way. Not saying that, like, live action couldn't work, but you've got a lot of challenges and hurdles to do. Now, if you went complete practical effects with CGI helping to enhance and potentially going more of a route of John Carpenter's The Thing kind of effects and going on with that kind of shit with, like, really good zombie kind of makeup and everything from, like, Romero's Dead series, you could do some shit. But that means you'd have to commit and understand what goes on and actually understand the characters, which Capcom itself doesn't. Whole fucking shit they don't. So that means you're going to have to get to a certain core and execute your vision as best as you can. And that's all we can really hope for. So, yeah. Those are my views on this season. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.